So I'm sure you guys know by now that ChatGPT is all the rage, and so I thought it would be fun to ask ChatGPT how to prepare for law school, see what AI has to say about it, and then I can tell you guys what I think about what the AI has to say about it, because I know that law school, especially preparing for law school, can feel like a black box and a question mark and an unknown. And so it's going to be fun to see if we can pierce through that today and what a law school coach thinks about what AI thinks about preparing for law school. So the first thing that ChatGPT says that you need to do to prepare for law school is develop strong reading and writing skills. ChatGPT says law school requires a lot of reading and writing, so it's crucial to hone these skills. Consider taking courses that focus on reading comprehension, critical thinking, and legal writing. So I would give a point in favor of ChatGPT on this one. I think that ChatGPT is definitely correct. In law school, you're going to be doing a lot of reading and a lot of writing. Now, it is important to understand and appreciate that this type of reading and this type of writing is very different than anything that we've done before, because what tends to happen with the reading piece is I hear a lot of advice given by lawyers and given by other people in the community out there that you should just read a lot before law school, right? Read really long books, read the Constitution of the United States, read super long articles to get used to reading. And I actually don't think that this is helpful, because it's not just the concept of reading a bunch or even developing reading endurance or reading speed. In law school, the skill that you're going to be asked to do, and the skill that we want to cultivate or begin cultivating before you begin, is critical reading. And so more specifically, being able to read a fact pattern and being able to identify what potential legal issues are being triggered by those facts, because that's what you're going to be asked to do on a final exam in law school. And so that sort of analytical, critical reading is really what we're after. And similarly, when you are reading a case, which is what you're going to be assigned to read in law school, being able to read through the case and identify the critical pieces of information or analysis that the judge is talking about that turned the decision one way or the other. So it's much more in the weeds and critical, which I've said, way too many times already. But yeah, it's way more nitty gritty than just like a voluminous amount of reading or the ability to consume a voluminous amount of information. And then when it comes to the writing piece, I think it's important to understand that distinction as well, because a lot of us who continue on to law school come from liberal arts backgrounds, right? So a lot of us have sort of writing heavy backgrounds in political science or history or English or philosophy. And I think it is necessary to know that legal writing is very different than a lot of other forms of writing. It's very logical, it's very analytical, it's very formulaic. And so I made the mistake of thinking, just because I felt like I was a strong writer because I'd written so many papers in college, that I would also just naturally be a good legal writer. And that wasn't true. Those were skills that I needed to know and develop in order to become a strong legal writer. And the good news here too, though, is if you come from a non-writing heavy background, so let's say you're a STEM major in undergrad, you can still become a really strong legal writer, because stereotypically, of course, and traditionally, STEM majors have cultivated the skill of being really analytical and methodical and logical, and that plays very well into the legal writing piece. So it's not flowery and it's not verbose. It's actually very straight and simple and to the point. Like the more sort of like structured and piecemeal you can make it, the stronger your legal writing is going to be, because it's that much easier for the person reading it to follow your argument and then reach the conclusion that you're trying to get them to reach. The second thing that ChatGPT recommends that you do for how to prepare for law school is to familiarize yourself with the law. Start building your foundation in legal concepts by reading about the law in general. This could include books on legal theory, case law, or legal practice. I'm going to give a big red X to ChatGPT on this one. And I hear this advice being given by a lot of lawyers to law students, and I actually really disagree with it. And so the idea is, of course, that you're going to teach yourself the law before you actually get into law school, with the idea that you'll be really familiar with these areas of the law before you begin. And what I've actually seen to be the case when this happens is that it has the opposite intended effect. So rather than making you feel more comfortable or more empowered or clearer, it actually creates a lot of confusion, a lot of overwhelm, and a lot of hits to confidence, actually, because all of these different areas of the law that you'll be learning are very, very, very nuanced. There's a lot of details in there. There's a lot of situation-specific factors. And one of the reasons, one could argue maybe, which should be the reason, but that's a topic for a different video. But one of the reasons you're going to law school is to literally hire a professional, your professor, to teach you this stuff step by step by step. And so what I have seen happen when people kind of take on the assignment of trying to teach themselves the material before they start, it actually has a lot of, it's way more harmful than it is helpful. One of the things that you can do, if you're just curious about some of these concepts, the thing that I always tell my students is to just do a very light, very dip your toe into the water type of approach. And my favorite tool for this is Quimby. So Quimby is a wonderful resource that most of my students use for a lot of different things, but they have a free 7-day trial and they have these 1L course videos. And so they will break down some of the basic concepts of the classes you'll be taking 1L a year. So contracts, torts, property, criminal law, civil procedure, constitutional law. I think I'm getting them all. Maybe I'm missing one. But that way you can at least hear these concepts for the first time. You're sort of letting them wash over you. You're familiarizing yourself with the words. That way, when you hear them in class, it's not the first time you're hearing them. So that could add a level of comfort there and familiarity. But yeah, I would not recommend trying to dig into all these pieces and teach yourself the law before you learn the law. The other piece to this that's really important too is that these areas of the law are very broad. And so what actually is important once you start class is the way that your professor teaches this area of the law and what your professor thinks is important, because that is the human who is going to be writing and grading your final exams. And so rather than taking sort of like this scattershot approach where you're trying to potentially teach yourself everything you could know about contract law, for example, it's a much stronger, more efficient use of your time to focus in and laser in on how your professor wants you to talk about it, to learn it, and to give it back to them on final exams. And so that's also a leaky way that I have found to use time before law school, is getting too deep in these weeds when you don't know which specific weeds your professor is going to ask you to learn and pick and give back to them. That metaphor got really out of hand. Yeah, so that's as far as I would go in learning the law. I would not go read full textbooks. I would not go read legal theory. I would not go read case law randomly. And I would not do anything more than dip my toe into these 1L course videos that Quimby has that you can access. And if that at all gets overwhelming, I would just stop, because the most important thing to get clear on before law school is the strategy. It's not actually the substantive law. And so I would not want you guys to feel overwhelmed or beaten before you actually begin. And that's kind of the number one killer that I see destroying spirits before law school actually starts. The third thing that ChatGPT recommends that you do to prepare for law school is to stay up to date with current events. Law is a constantly evolving field, and it's important to stay informed about changes in the legal system and current events that may impact the law. Oh my God, huge red X on this one, guys. Huge red X on this one. So there's a couple layers to this. So number one, you absolutely do not need to be staying up to date on changes in the law. That is insane. So when we're talking about changes in the law that affect different practice areas, that is specifically for people who are full-blown professional lawyers practicing in a particular area of law, who subscribe to the blogs and the news outlets that they need to, where these things are reported, so they know how and if it changes their area of practice. But if it's something that will so dramatically change the practice that they need to be aware of it for their clients, it will be all over the news. So maybe a US Supreme Court case comes out that changes the standard for evaluating patents, or maybe a U.S. Supreme Court case comes out that changes the standard for refugees seeking asylum. And if that's the case, you're going to be part of a community, a bar association. You're going to have access to these news outlets, and you're going to know which ones you need to follow to know that these changes are happening. And again, if it's a big change, everybody and their mom is going to be aware of it. So when you are heading into law school, you 1000% do not need to know this stuff, because ChatGPT is telling you not only to be an expert in all of the areas of law that you're about to study, but also be an expert in all of the different ways that all of these areas of the law are changing, which is just so ridiculous. So no, do not put that on your plate. That is not something you need to know. If your professor wants you to know about something, he or she will teach it to you in class. That is the sphere of the information that you need to know. And this second part about staying up to date with just general current events, I find so funny, because I feel like that advice is given to everybody who is starting a professional degree or kind of starting a new phase academically. And so I remember taking that to heart because I never stayed up to date with current events. So I decided I was going to read, I don't know, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or CNN or something like that. And then, of course, I never did. And so then it just became this item on my to-do list that never got done. And then I stressed out about it never getting done. So if you are not somebody who generally follows current events, and that's not a part of your day-to-day up until this point, do not put that on your list of things to do. It's not necessary. You don't need it. It's just going to stress you out and overwhelm you more. And it's not going to move the needle. So feel comfortable, rest assured, you don't need to do that. The one caveat to this is not pre-law school, but when you're in law school and you're heading into interviews. I actually have this in the specific interview training for my students. The morning of the interview, do take a look at like CNN.com just to see if anything major has happened the night before or that morning before you head into the interview. So if something crazy has taken place, you're aware of it in the interview if it just like generally comes up in conversation. And I have a really funny story about that I feel like I should probably save for another video, where I did not do that. A big news item did occur, and then it came up in an interview, and I made a little bit of a fool of myself because I didn't know about it. But anyway, I digress. That's for the future, very specific time frame, heading into an interview, checking CNN.com the morning of. But no, you guys do not need to get in the practice of following current events before you start law school. Very, very unnecessary. The fourth thing that ChatGPT says you need to do to prepare for law school is to build a strong academic record. ChatGPT says law schools place a high value on academic performance, so it's essential to maintain a high GPA and take challenging courses. So I'm going to give ChatGPT a check mark on this one, but this isn't so much law school prep. I guess it is if you're like far enough back in time, if you're early enough in the process. But yes, ChatGPT is right. Specifically for law school admissions though. So when we're talking about law school admissions, the two numbers that are the most valuable and the most powerful in your law school application are going to be your LSAT score and your undergraduate GPA. And these are really important factors in your application because they're really important factors for how law schools are ranked. And so I have a video that I'll post up here about the law school rankings, but just in case you guys aren't aware, the U.S. News and World Report law school rankings are kind of the end-all be-all at the moment for how law schools are ranked and how law schools are viewed prestigiously and how law students honestly tend to make decisions about where they're going to law school. And so every law school is out to get as high a ranking as they can, and because U.S. News and World Report has included LSAT score and undergraduate GPA as two of the biggest factors, law school admissions in turn are going to consider those as the two biggest factors as well. So LSAT score is probably a bit of a different conversation, but this one that ChatGPT is bringing up is your undergraduate GPA. And I think it's important to know that, right? Because I think a lot of us, especially if we take years in between undergrad and law school, think that the undergrad GPA sort of dwindles in significance over time. And that's not 100% true. Like, it still is a number. It still goes into the calculation. It still is considered for the law school's ranking. So it's still important for them to get candidates that have as high of an undergraduate GPA as possible. What is interesting though is that ChatGPT says that you should take challenging courses, which again, if we are solely going after what is going to make our law school admissions application strong, if it's the GPA, then you don't necessarily need to take challenging courses if the goal is to get as high of a GPA as possible. That being said, I don't disagree that if you are someone who has to work harder in undergrad, it's going to be less of a shock how much harder you have to work in law school in order to get the grades that you want, because it is a lot. But no matter how hard you work in college, or in grad school, the workload and the level of discipline and the level of complexity in law school is going to be a lot higher. It just is. And so that's going to be a shock no matter how hard you work in undergrad. But I do think that jump is a little less painful if you do come from an undergrad background or a grad school background that was a little bit more challenging. But I will say that I personally wouldn't make the switch from taking a challenging course that I'm likely to get a lower grade in than taking a not as challenging course that I'm likely to get a higher grade in, because again, that undergraduate GPA is really powerful in law school admissions. The fifth thing that ChatGPT recommends for how to prepare for law school is to consider participating in extracurricular activities. Joining clubs or organizations that relate to law or public service can help you develop relevant skills and demonstrate your interest in the field. I'm going to give a check mark to ChatGPT on this one because I definitely agree with this, although I would tweak it slightly. So ChatGPT is specifically talking about extracurricular activities, so clubs and organizations. And the part that I would tweak is that it's going to be much more powerful if you are participating and gaining these skills in a work environment. So that could be an actual job job, but that could also be an internship or a volunteership. And so the reason that this is powerful, we were talking about law school admissions and the two factors that they primarily look at, LSAT score and undergraduate GPA. And then the third factor I would say is work experience. And so yes, if you have graduated college and you've actually worked in the real world for a couple of years, that's going to be really powerful on your law school admissions application. But even if you're coming straight through from undergrad, you can still get internships, you can still volunteer, and you can still develop these substantive skills and show your interest in these areas. And so one of the things that ChatGPT is getting at here, which is very smart ChatGPT, is that narrative. So that line, I think they said, demonstrate your interest in the field. Yeah, so when you go to apply to law school and your personal statement is about why you want to go to law school or what type of law you think you might want to go into or why, it's a lot more powerful to say, I want to practice this type of law, or I want to go to law school for this reason, or I want to serve this group of people or these businesses, if you actually have experience to back that up. So if you can point to internships that you've done or pro bono, it's not really pro bono when you're not a lawyer, but volunteerships that you've done, or even part-time or full-time work that you've done that demonstrates this interest and has this through line in the narrative. So if it's something law related, great. But for a lot of us, we don't have legal experience before law school, so it doesn't have to be law related. Public policy related is really close too. So that's a powerful one if you're interested in the public policy area, in government and that kind of thing. That's considered very close. But it could also be interested in like a STEM thing. I'm not a STEM major, so I'm not the best person to give this example, but maybe you're tutoring math students. Maybe you, I don't know, interned in a science organization or volunteered in a science-based organization, a technology-based organization, and you, in your personal statement, are going to say that you want to go into privacy law or you want to, cross law with tech and go into IP or something like that. Just saying that in your personal statement is all good and great, but if you can actually show that you've taken steps to get experiences in these areas, even if they're kind of tangentially related, that's still going to be a much more powerful narrative. And then the last thing I would say here is, sure, extracurriculars, sure, student organizations, but I would say that those are secondary to actually getting this substantive experience in a work-ish environment, right? Work, internship, volunteership. And then if you also want to join an organization like a public policy organization or a tech organization or a sports law organization, great. But that's kind of like the lowest thing on the totem pole in terms of like commitment and experience that you can possibly do. And so I wouldn't stress about the traditional extracurriculars that you think of when you think of college. I would definitely focus more on how can I show that interest or develop those skills in a substantive way in an actual work, internship, or volunteership environment. All right, guys, we're getting close. Number 6 on the list for ChatGPT and how to prepare for law school is to prepare for the LSAT. The LSAT is a standardized test that is a key component of the law school application process. Consider enrolling in an LSAT prep course or studying independently to prepare for this exam. So huge, big green check mark next to this one. Yes, if you are considering going to law school, you are going to have to study for and take the LSAT. Caveat, there are some law schools that accept the GMAT, but only in certain circumstances. And actually, it's not even the GMAT, I think it's the GRE. So check out this video if you're curious about that. Anna Ivy talks through all law school admissions frequently asked questions, but that's sort of an aside because it's a very small subset of people, small subset of law schools, very specific situations. So not relevant to our high level how to prepare for law school topic. Anyway, the point is the LSAT is very powerful. As we talked about, it's going to be the number one factor in terms of not only law school admissions, but law school scholarships. And so when you are thinking about taking the LSAT, check out this video first, because this is the down and dirty on things to know about preparing for the LSAT and ways that you can do that. But you definitely want to put yourself in a position to get as high a score as you possibly can, because that will open the doors to getting into law school, but could also open the doors, and very frequently can open the doors, to partial scholarships and even full scholarships. And so in law school, because the tuition is so expensive and the student loans that you generally have to take out are so high, if you can lower the cost of law school through scholarships or even eliminate it altogether, you are going to set yourself up for achieving financial freedom that much more quickly, which will give you the flexibility and the freedom to choose the job that you actually want out of law school, to build the career you actually want, do the work that you actually want. So yeah, the LSAT is a big one. And that video walks through the different ways that you can prepare for it, whether that's taking a program, whether that's self-study, whether that's getting tutoring help. But yeah, the LSAT's a big one, super important when it comes to law school. And the last thing that ChatGPT says for how to prepare for law school, coming in at number 7, is to seek out mentorship. So ChatGPT says talking to current law students or lawyers can give you valuable insights into the law school experience and the legal profession. And we're going to give ChatGPT a huge check mark on this one, because I couldn't agree more. That being said, there are a few caveats that I would put on this. And the first one is that lawyers and law students, as a general rule, we love to give advice. We love to give opinions. Case in point, this YouTube channel. And so it's important to make sure that you are filtering the information that you're getting, because not everybody gives great advice. And so one of the ways to begin to filter this is to look at where they are in their life, or what their sort of worldview is, or what they've achieved. And is that compatible with you? Is that compatible with how you view the world, or what you're looking to achieve, or sort of your personal vibe and approach? And even if it's not, it's helpful to get lots of different opinions, lots of different thoughts from people who've been through the experience and who can tell you what their personal experience was with it. The other word of warning here too is that there do tend to be a lot of law students and lawyers who are quite jaded with the legal industry and with the law school industry, and expectedly so, right? It's very, very challenging. It's competitive. It's very demanding on your time, on your energy, on your life. And so just be aware that that's out there, and it's not to sort of negate their experiences, but there are definitely people, myself included, who were very glad that they went to law school, who are very happy that they became lawyers and they had a really good experience, even if it wasn't perfect. And so just make sure that you're seeking out a balance, and you can't always, of course, control this or know this ahead of time, but just know that there is a balance of experiences out there that yes, are challenging, but that also have a lot of positive pieces to them too. And then specifically when it comes to the law school preparation piece, this is what made me become a law school strategy coach, honestly, because I heard so many pieces of advice that I disagreed with. And I also realized that law school had been taught the same way for 140 years and it still felt like a mystery. And so kind of those two pieces together kind of finally got me off the horse, if that's an expression, but into actually teaching these strategies to you guys, because it became kind of a puzzle, like a puzzle box or like a puzzle room of really breaking down these pieces to find out what can really help people understand and really help you guys put these strategy pieces together in a way that positions you for the grades that you want, because it's not as obvious as it seems, and it's definitely not like this college 2.0 where we can do the same things and expect the same results. And so just be a little bit wary of the advice that you're getting from people, especially if they haven't done the things that you're looking to do or haven't reached the level that you're looking to reach or didn't have the outcomes that you're looking to have. Just take it with a grain of salt, filter it out. But in terms of talking to lawyers, I think that is an awesome idea for a secondary reason of building your network and really growing these organic relationships. And so if you guys are interested in kind of starting that process, definitely check out this video that I did with Dave Straussberg, because he goes step by step through the process of informational interviews, which is by far the best, most efficient, most organic way I've ever heard of anybody explaining how to network, because that can be a really nebulous concept. And not only, depending on where you are in the process, not only can listening and hearing from lawyers' experiences help you to determine if law school is even something you want to do, but if you're further in the process and you've already applied or you've already taken the LSAT, this is a great way to grow that network and grow those relationships, specifically with lawyers who are living and working in the city where you think you want to live and work, or practicing a type of law that you think you might want to practice, because then you can nurture those relationships and continue to reach out to them. And that can even lead to internships down the line, summer associateships down the line, full-time jobs down the line, referrals down the line when you get way down the line, client relationships down the line. And so I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think it's a really, really powerful skill to be able to learn how to talk to people that you don't know in a professional way, in a respectful way that can actually build this organic relationship that you can cultivate going forward. So great job, ChatGPT, on this one. Huge check mark. And then also ChatGPT leaves us with one more statement here. It says, remember, the key to success in law school is dedication and hard work. By following these tips, you can ensure that you are well prepared to take on the challenges of law school. And so we appreciate you, ChatGPT. Law school definitely takes dedication and hard work. And these tips are very helpful, even if we disagreed a little bit with some of them and caveated some of them. I think it's really helpful to have this conversation and to bring these things forward, and then hear why they're completely wrong. No, but hear why what I have seen work really well for people and what I have seen not work as well for people. So hopefully that was helpful to you guys. And if you have any thoughts on what we talked about, or you have any of your own tips on how to prepare for law school, if you're already going through the process or out the other side, hit us up in the comments below. Let us know. I love that this style of conversation can really get some opinions going and can really get some commentary going. So this one was so fun to go through with you guys. I really hope it was helpful. And if you are heading into law school and you're curious about the strategies that you need to know, or the way that I really love to piece these things together into a tangible action plan, drop me in the comments below and I will send you guys free resources, my free guide, link to my free masterclass, and we can go even further down the rabbit hole on this stuff if you guys are just ready to nerd out on law school grade strategy. So I hope that was as lovely for you guys as it was for me, and I will see y'all in the next one.